Greetings and welcome, everybody. We at Global Roundtable Leadership have been spending some time talking about things that matter to us in our framework and in the world, and we're so happy to know that you're going to join us in that and ponder about the things that we're pondering about. So today, we thought we would talk about one of the important parts of our shared leadership framework. One of our 4 pillars is humanity. And we frame that up as we recognize each other and meet as equals in our humanity, what exists at the core of us before relating through roles, status, and expertise. And the crux of this is that we meet relationally. We meet as human beings before position or role or function. And so today we thought, given the events in our country and the things that many of us are grappling with about race and privilege and all these things that are really becoming, well, they've been apparent for a long time, but more so in the last few weeks right now. What does leading with our humanity mean for these times? And how do we try to practice bringing that into the work that we do in our lives and the way we want the world to be? And I'll start with, who was going to go first? Tristan.
Thank you, Kate. And first and foremost, I think that in order to dismantle systemic racism and systemic racist structures, we have to learn how to break with white solidarity. And that requires a whole bunch of different levels of work, some of it deeply personal and some of it not. But where that work of breaking with white solidarity, to me, enters into sort of the directly relational and the practical is how we meet in our full humanity, and actually recognizing that if we aren't meeting in our full humanity, that it is easier for us to stay in places of sort of safety or comfort. And so that's a place where I like to think about how showing up with a full humanity allows us to actually have the authentic conversations.
Tristan, I echo that. I feel like, especially when you start to have more friends, we start to have friends of color in your life, and you start to have a place of trust and relationship by which you can have more open dialogue with friends of color. That humanity is there, and I was thinking, I can't wait to see. There's a friend of mine I'm going to see on Wednesday night who I haven't seen in like 6 months. Her name is Jules, and she's a woman of color. We come from different neighborhoods and different upbringings, completely different. But yet the moment we met at an organic grocery store in Bed-Stuy that she helped us start, it was instantaneous connection, because I think we met from soul. We met from that place of shared humanity together. And I heard this great thing around empathy leading to like then the journey of education around privilege and systemic racism and white supremacy. And I think empathy often is like, because you have human connection, you relate first as human with people. That empathy can grow that. And so yeah, I'm hearing that with you.
And Julie, well, you're both sparking me, Tristan and Julie. But I know we're, chewing on this question: what role does leading with our humanity have to do with systemic racism? And I would say it has everything to do with breaking systemic racism, and that the shift of leading relationally, not positionally, of having power over and under each other, but what does it mean to have power with each other? And we name that even these pillars are not that we know the answers, is that they're practices, that they're continuous, lifelong practices of practicing leading with our humanity before roles, status, and expertise. And that these practices, I know directly for me, have also helped me to see my blind spots, and I'm sure will continue to help me to see my blind spots, which I think is such an essential part of seeing my own white privilege, and also being able to connect to myself and my own vulnerability and my own relationship to life and my relationship to others. And The other piece I want to say about leading relationally is learning each other's stories. And Julie, that's where you sparked me with you and Jules meeting, and that we recognize each other, you know, and that in that recognition, when we're leading relationally, that we can break down racism in one way by storytelling and sharing our stories with each other and getting to know each other's children and partners and work we do and all the rest.
I also have been thinking about, I liked what Julie said about empathy and how, and having, and also, so having empathy and also having compassion for the other person and listening deeply to their story and being able to be present in that moment for that person, I think is really important.
For me, leading with our humanity, I'm Mexican American, and I always get sparked by, there's a Mayan tradition where when people greet each other, they say in Lakesh, and they put their hand on their heart. And what in Lakesh means is that I am you and you are me. So it's a way to honor each other, but it's also a statement of unity and oneness. And I think that as individuals, we can absolutely break the system if we unite collectively to this beautiful consciousness of unity and hands in our hearts.
Thanks for that. I love the hand on the heart. So I think for me, it's about not just making space for everybody, but it's inviting with a real sense of curiosity. And Lori, about not just their stories, but their experience and people's gifts, which makes everything just so much more beautiful and interesting. We certainly don't want just Kate McGowan's perspective and story and experience. Really invite and make space for all of that. And then I think the other piece about that humanity, and Laura, you talk about practice, it's the practice of reflecting. How did I do today? How much invitation and space did I make? And how can I do better tomorrow?
Julie, I appreciate that you brought friendship in. I think that's where I was going to go. And specifically for me, I was thinking about the Peace Corps, which has had a huge impact on me, and the mission of the Peace Corps, which is world peace and friendship. And the quote from John F. Kennedy when he had his inauguration, and he said, the famous quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." The next line, less famous, "Ask not what America can do for you, but together what we can do for all mankind." And he was asking all of us to think about where we go in the world and the kind of work we can do in the world. And two statistics I just looked back up to remind myself is how many people there are in the world. It's 7.8 billion people. And how many countries there are in the world. There's 195. And I often don't reflect on those numbers or where I fit in those numbers. And the last thing I wanted to think about too is Gandhi, one of my favorite quotes of his, which is on his tombstone, is think of the poorest person you know and whether the thing you're going to do next is going to help that person. And for me, that's what true friendship is and what's really going to change the planet.
That concludes our episode for this week. Please visit us at grtl.us. We have a manifesto for the next economy for you there. So please visit grtl.us. Until next time.
Take great care, everyone.
Bye for now.